like a lion's mane.
You're not funny. Get out.
For my jelly, baby.
It's going to be great.
Well, I'm excited. Are you excited? This is the first time we've welcomed back a guest for their second visit, and could it be more fitting than to welcome back the very first person I spoke to? And when I thought about doing this, not sure, whether it was going to be something that was going to take off, I thought, well, who shall I ask? And I thought of Stephen Merchant, just because I'm hugely fond of him and because he's a comedy god. And he said yes to come back again. So, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Merchant. Wow, this is interesting. We could just watch Stephen Merchant's chair and the view outside his window. But look at that wind. I'm rather like Hugh Edwards at a royal occasion, talking a little slower than I normally would, to give myself time to think, as it should be, of the right words to say for such an austere occasion. And Stephen Merchant, as we know, has been interviewed by Rob previously. Indeed, he was the very first, the debut interviewee in what would go on to become known as Brydon. And I hear noises. Could that be? Is it the Duke? Oh, my word. It's the Duke. He's there. He's sitting down. He's putting his headphones on. He's joining us.
Hello.
Well, I thought you were there, so I began, and I've been talking for 5 minutes. I've been doing a Hugh Edwards, when he has to slow down at a royal occasion because things aren't moving along.
Well, I apologise for that. I thought we were starting at 9:30, and I like to be on time, ready to go. I was just back there working on some anecdotes, so that we can really make this sing. Are we recording now? Has it begun?
Take a wild guess.
I assume it has.
Yeah, baby. First of all, you're the first person, thank you, to do this twice, and I'm thrilled that it's you. Second of all, it's a horrible day here. It's horrible, grey and wet and windy, but it doesn't look much different out of your window.
It's here in Los Angeles, and I've opened up the window so that you can see the rain and the grey, Rob, because I know how bitter and jealous you get when you talk to me and the sun is shining. So I thought, you'd feel a lot more at home if I revealed how grim it is here. It's quite cozy in LA when it's raining.
It's never the career that I envy. It's only ever the weather.
Can you talk about the facial growth that you've grown?
Oh, Steve, don't describe it as a facial growth. I'm making a series for Amazon, My Lady Jane. So I'm playing Lord John Dudley, the father-in-law of Lady Jane Grey.
Because it's obviously got a sort of Tudor quality to it.
It's coloured for the part, and it's slowly now starting. It's more now like a tribute to Basil Brush than anything else. My
growth of beard was a big game changer for me. And one day I just got lazy and I let it grow. And it was transformative because it gave me the illusion of masculinity. It gave me a bit more of a swagger. I felt myself becoming more attractive. I'm sticking with it, Rob. I don't know whether you feel I've made the right choice.
Just going on the evidence in front of me now, it was the right choice. Interesting that you say your reasons, because I've always assumed you grew it when you wanted to lay low that time after the incident.
The problem is that you say that with such a straight face that people are now assuming there was an incident.
Because I heard you went to a cottage in Cornwall. You had a burner phone, so you couldn't be traced. And you lived as a crofter until it had all passed by.
Let's cut that bit out.
Oh, I think that'll be the trailer.
I'm just conscious for the YouTube viewer. Am I getting very backlit now? Should I lower the blind?
Well, I'm surprised that a man who is a director of some note. I get this from some actors. They don't realise the sort of the backlight situation and how it makes you look like you're in the witness protection scheme. That's a lot better.
That's better, isn't it?
That's a lot nicer.
Did you ever truly die on your arse doing stand-up?
Yes.
Was that once you were known or before you were?
I've had mostly before I was known, but I've had some. I tell you a funny thing. Somebody tweeted a few years ago and said, "Hey, it was this day 3 years ago that I saw Rob Brydon die on his arse at and I'd forgotten it. It was a corporate thing, an insurance thing in the middle of the afternoon. People say you always remember your bad reviews, but I think equally you also put things away. You know, you forget about them. I forgot about that. I can't believe that you've ever had a bad experience on a stage.
Do you know, when I first started doing stand-up, which was before I ever was involved with TV or anyone knew who I was, the persona that I had in stand-up was of a sort of arrogant comedian from the West Country.
It's interesting you call it a persona, but go on.
So the joke was that I would come out and I would say, "Oh, I'm really big in the West Country, and you're lucky to have me here." And then the joke was I would never get to the act. I would keep promising this brilliant stand-up act, but I would decide that I didn't like the attitude of someone in the audience, and I would read reviews of previous gigs, which in my mind were great, but I'd written them in such a way that they were clearly slamming me, even though they were sort of ambiguous enough that you could interpret them either way. And if the audience was into it, it was an absolute joy. It was so much fun. They were on board. They understood it was a persona. And they just went with it, and it was great. But if they didn't, if they thought either this was the real me or they just weren't in the groove, I was done for. I had nothing because I had no act. So it was like a kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, a sort of postmodern thing. And so I remember doing a gig in Exeter, and no one went for it. There was just, and you're like 2 minutes in, and you know you've got 20 minutes to do, and you don't get paid unless you do the 20 minutes. And I just was done for. And someone actually shouted "taxi for the comedian." And it was brutal. And I remember coming off, and there was a waitress who came up to me and she said, "That was really good. I see a lot of comedy week to week, and I really loved what you were doing. That was great." And she was the only thing that sort of kept me going. I don't know who she was, but I thank her for keeping me in this game, because I phoned my agent at the time. I was like, I'm out. I can't do any more gigs. I'm done for it. It was brutal.
And I don't know if people will ever, unless you do it, will ever be able to understand the massive polarizing ways you can feel on a stage. You can feel like the funniest person in the world when it's going well. You can feel like you couldn't put a foot wrong. It's just happening. And there are other times when you feel literally like there's not a funny bone in your body.
Well, we're big, both of us, big Bruce Springsteen fans. And I'm surprised you haven't asked me about it, because it seems to me somehow on all the podcasts I've listened to, you somehow get every interview around to either Bruce Springsteen or Neil Diamond. So I'm disappointed we haven't got there yet. But I like that thing which we talked about before, about Bruce saying, you know, that he always imagines the audience member as someone who's never seen him before. They've bought a ticket 6 months in advance. They've put it on the fridge, and they're excited to go, and they go to see the show, and he's got to deliver for them. And I admire that greatly. I think that's a really great attitude for any person, any performer.
Where are you going to go and see him? I'm hoping to see him on his first night in Europe at Barcelona.
I shall wait till he's in the UK. I mean, I'm a fan, but I'm not a madman.
Well, I think that's rather hurtful. I mean, I don't know how many more opportunities I'll have to see him. I could drop dead any moment.
I don't want anyone to think that I'm being snobbish or that I'm not a man of the people, because you know full well that I am. But when I came out to France, this was the first time for some time that I had travelled on, I think it was Ryanair? I think it was Ryanair. Now, I have nothing against Ryanair or the people who are flying on Ryanair.
Even though when you said it, you struggled to pronounce it.
It's true. But I needed, obviously being very tall, I needed the additional legroom. And I didn't realise that on Ryanair, that meant you're literally sitting on the first seat as people come through the door boarding the plane. So if you have any level of public recognition, that is the worst place to be sitting. And because I'd sort of scrambled to get on board the plane straight away to not lose my seat, I had to sit there while every single passenger walked by, sometimes gave me a verdict on me, the work I've done, just on the fact I was tall. I felt like I was the cuddly toy on the conveyor belt on the Generation game. It was so intense. So this has actually made me a little nervous about traveling to Europe on those short-haul flights.
Yeah, I saw Richard Osman was interviewed the other day, and this got a bit of press, with him talking about, with regards his height, feeling a little bit vulnerable with it, or people are always making jokes about it. Yeah. And it surprised me, because Richard's always seemed in my dealings to have a very thick skin and very, you know, match fit. And it made me think of my tall friend, Stephen. And has that ever been something that's got under your skin?
Oh, definitely. I think so. I think an interviewer said to me once, do you think that you went into comedy to control when people laugh at you? Which I thought was quite a bold opening question. But there's probably some truth in it, in the sense that I think when you're very tall, particularly from a young age, you're always standing out, whether you like it or not. You know, we've gone into show business because we like showing off a little bit. But when you don't get any choice about when you're looked at, that's quite strange, you know, and I think people, for some reason, assume that being tall is an achievement of some kind. Oh, well done, you're tall. Everyone sort of desires being tall. And I think when you're as tall as me or Richard Osman, you do become self-conscious about it, and everyone feels they can make a comment and a glib remark. And it's not that they're hurtful. I think it's just monotonous. You know, and people say, "Oh, you're tall," or "What's the weather like up there?" or whatever. I've got no comeback. I've got no droll response. It's just boring, and I'm kind of angry that you brought it up.
So you don't love Bruce enough to go and see him in Barcelona. So will you be going to see him in Hyde Park?
Yes, I think I probably will.
Because I'm thinking of seeing him there as well, and it would be very nice if we could somehow. You don't have to agree to it now publicly, but wouldn't it be nice to have that experience together?
I think you on my shoulders, you know, perhaps flashing your boobs, would be an absolute delight. Well, have you ever seen my first ever TV appearance was on the Glastonbury Festival coverage from about 1994, and I was in the crowd at for Pulp and for Oasis. They were still kind of, you know, up and coming bands. And you can see me, I'm about obviously 1.5 feet taller than everyone else in the audience, singing along to the bands, wearing my father's cricketing hat. I mean, really looking like an absolute player, as you'd imagine.
Wow.
And you can see the people behind me furious.
But they didn't know they were standing behind one half of the creative team, and this is very sincere, for the most influential comedy of our time. It's a hell of a thing to be able to say. How do you wear that? Because it's true. This is no time for modesty on your part. The Office is the most influential comedy of its time. How often are you aware of that?
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I am aware of it because it's become, the show in its American form or otherwise has become so ubiquitous and is sort of referenced so often and is seen here and there. I mean, I play a lot of online chess. And on online chess, you have a little avatar picture which you can choose of anything. And quite often it will be a little avatar of an Office character, either from the American version or the British version. And what's fun is often, and I'm anonymous on chess, so often I will get insulted in the little sort of chat box by someone who's like, "Ha ha, you're shit at chess." But they'll have a little sort of Dwight Schrute avatar. And I for some reason, that's one of the most pleasurable things in my day is to be heckled by someone with a little Office avatar. So so I love the fact that it's kind of become part of the fabric of TV land, because I think growing up as a fan of stuff, Fawlty Towers or Cheers or whatever it was, those are the things I aspired to be involved with. So the fact that we sort of did something which is in the same kind of echelon is amazing.
It's funny when you know someone well, like I know you. You sort of maybe don't stop and think about that, but it's as good as it gets. It's as big as it gets, and sorry, all I'm saying really is well done.
Well, thanks very much. Sometimes someone said to me, "Are you worried that you've never written anything as good as The Office?" And I was always reminded of Joseph Heller was asked, "Are you aware that you've never written anything as good as Catch-22?" And he said, "Who has?" And so, so that's always my answer.
I've loved talking to you. Thank you for being our first returning guest.
Rob, it's always a joy talking to you. I look forward to seeing you at the Bruce Springsteen concert.
But not in Barcelona.
Not in Barcelona. I'm not getting on a Ryanair flight ever again.
Fair enough. Hey, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Rob.